What's up everybody, Jason from Jason's Exotic Reptiles. Today we're going to talk about thermostats. So if you've been around the hobby for any period of time, you've probably at least glanced at them if you don't already own them. If you have racks or you use heat pads, hopefully you already have them. But I'm going to get into this video kind of the thermostats that I've used, the things that I like about them, the different types of thermostats, different ones that I don't like and I don't recommend, and hopefully this helps you make purchases, either currently purchases or some future decisions on what you're trying to purchase. Before I get into the video, I'm going to show off this snake. Please like, subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and share it if you think it's worthy. But this is a Pearl Island boa, an adult male. This is about as large as they get. So this is a he's going into shed right now, so he's not as pretty as he usually is. He's definitely a gorgeous animal, but definitely not as vibrant and bright as he typically is. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Thermostats. So essentially, there's 2 or 3 different types of thermostats that you can consider. The first type of thermostat is an on-off. Essentially, it hits your temperature and it turns off. So let's say I program my thermostat for 90 degrees. Good ones will have a different variability on it. So I can say I'm going to program it for 90 degrees and I'm going to have a 1 degree difference. So my thermostat's going to heat my pad. Let's say I'm using it on some heat tape. It's going to heat my heat tape up to 91 degrees, then it's going to turn off, and then when it hits to 89 degrees, it's going to turn back on, because I have it set for 90 degrees with the 1 degree variance. Now those are the basic thermostats. They're usually a little bit cheaper. They're on-off thermostats. The next one, some of the more expensive thermostats have both features, but this is kind of a proportional thermostat. So it's going to, if I set it for 90 degrees, it's going to output the amount of power that it takes to put my thermostat at, put my heat element at 90 degrees. So if I have my probe on my heat mat and I set it for 90, it's going to set it to 90 degrees all the time. It might reduce the power down to 30% of the max output. Now, these are pretty good because if you watch my last video that I just produced, we talked about costs of owning reptiles and electricity costs. So essentially, if I have a 100-watt heating element and it's at 30%, I'm running it at 30% of what it would be costing me for electric. And that's all really real crucial when you're considering costs of owning reptiles. So on-off thermostat hits it on 100% power until it hits that degree you want it to, then turns completely off, then it goes back on and off. So this is a very basic thermostat system. A lot of homes run on something like this, where your home will hit the temperature, let's say 70 degrees, and it turns off, and then once it drops back down to 69 degrees, it kicks back on. The third one, which isn't necessarily a thermostat, but it runs kind of along the same lines of a proportional thermostat, is just a simple rheostat, like a light dimmer. Something you might see, a lot of you guys might have homes with a dimmer switch, whether it be a knob or it be like an up-down switch that essentially reduces the amount of power that goes to these lights. That's what a proportional thermostat is, except the proportional thermostat takes into account things like exterior temperature. So rheostats are good because they're cheap. You can usually get them for anywhere from $5 if you make them your own, to a couple bucks if you make them your own. You go to Home Depot and get a dimmer switch and wire it in, or could be like $20, $30 if you buy one of those Zoom Ed rheostats. The only problem with those is you have to make sure you check your temperatures often with the heat gun, because as your room temperature goes up or goes down, it's still pushing that same amount of output. So I've used rheostats for a long time. When I was younger, I didn't have the money, and the thermostats maybe weren't as readily available. Today, we have a huge selection in all price ranges. So unless you're really scrapping around, or you're good with electrical and you're on top of your reptiles, I always recommend just buying a decent thermostat. And that's what we're going to go through in this video. Thermostats at all price points. So let's get right into the ones that I've tried. So the first one that came to mind, and I've used a lot of them, this is like in my opinion, the classic thermostat. They're the Renko or Johnson Control thermostats. These are on-off thermostats. They usually run, I don't know, somewhere between $70 to $100, depending on who you get them from. Sometimes you can get them a little cheaper. Sometimes they're more money if you have them wired with some special stuff on it. But it's a simple on-off thermostat. They're super reliable. I've never had one fail on me, and I've maybe had 10 or 15 of them at one point. I still run my incubator off a Renko thermostat that I bought maybe 15 years ago. I lied. I had one of them fail on me, but that's because I overpowered it. So that's another consideration when you're running these thermostats, is make sure you pay attention to the power output, because that's not what I did. I was running a space heater with it, which is just totally wrong, but I mean, I was like 15 years old. I had no idea what I was doing. So I had a space heater powering, plugged into a thermostat, and it was just clicking on, off, all day long. And it just, I went in my room one day and I smelled something burning, and that was my thermostat essentially frying from the inside out, because it wasn't designed to do that. So that's something to consider. Don't do what I did and don't plug in a Renko thermostat to a space heater, which puts out 1500 watts as soon as it powers on, if not more. So OnOff thermostats, Renko is like my number one, or Renko or Johnson Controls. I don't know if they're the same company. They're essentially the same thermostat. I assume they use the same board inside. I love those thermostats. I still purchase new ones today, and I really just like how simple they are. You plug it in, they have a little 6-prong or a six-piece power surge protector on a lot of them if you get them from a Reptile supply, already wired in. Plug your stuff in, put your thermostat probe, and go. And we will talk about thermostat probe placement at the end of this video. So the next one that I really enjoyed for a while is the Spider Robotics. They call them the Herpstats. Those are some fantastic thermostats. The problem with those is they can be quite expensive. They range from about $110 all the way up to about $400 or $500, depending on what you want to do with it. Now, that is a powerful thermostat. You can control humidity, you can control your night drop, you can do on-off, you can do proportional. So it's a really awesome thermostat, but the price can get kind of expensive. So if you have a bunch of thermostats, let's say me, every one of these racks is on its own thermostat. I know people that put every piece of heat tape on its own thermostat. So when you're dropping about $200 on a thermostat and you have 15, 20 of them, it can be kind of expensive. So to me, it's a fantastic thermostat. I've never had one fail. They are usually rated for some pretty high wattage. You can even get the ones like the Herpstat 2 that you can control 2 different racks with 2 different probes, 2 different thermostat probes coming from them, all from the same thermostat, which is pretty awesome. They have high-low temperature alarms, and I have nothing bad to say about a Spider Robotics or Herpstat thermostat. They really are fantastic, and if they weren't so expensive, I'd probably have them on every rack that I have. But I'll get to the kind of one that I've been using lately as we get through this video. Now, another one that's a good thermostat, but I've had varied experience with, are the Vivarium Electronics thermostat, the VE100s, 200s, 300s. Now, I've never tried a 300-400 thermostat. I think basically that's how many, I think how they do it, how VE does it is they rank them by how many thermostat probes they come off of it. So a VE200, I believe, can have 2 probes coming off. So similar to what I just said, you can control 2 different racks with the same thermostat. VE400 has 4 different probes coming off of it. Only problem with those that I found is they usually don't go higher in the output. So let's say you have a VE400, it's still rated for 750 to 1000 watts. Check the specs if you're going to buy these. I'm not sure if that's what it is. It should be clearly in there. It should tell you what they're rated for. But in my experience, that's been something that usually I have 1 rack controlled per thermostat, and there's no real benefit to me getting the 400 because I'm still going to have 1 rack controlled by that, because that's where all my power comes from. Each one of the racks pulls about 500 watts or so, give or take how many levels I have on it. So that's something that to consider is how you want to run these. Now the 200s are nice, or the 2 probe ones are nice, because you can do like a probe on the top and a probe on the bottom. You know, heat rises, so as we go higher up in the room, obviously those, you don't want to put that probe controlling the whole rack up at the top, because your bottom racks are going to be too cold. So, and again, we're going to get into the thermostat placement towards the end of the video. So the only problem I've had with the VE thermostats is they tend to fail on me. And every VE thermostat, I've probably had about 6 or 7, they've all failed on me at times. And whether they just stopped working, or whether the fuses, the nice thing about them is they have fuses, and the fuses will blow. That basically means I'm putting too much power to it. But it can be a pain in the ass sometimes when the fuse blows. But it's not so much the fuse blowing. The thermostat will just randomly stop working. And I've tried different probes on it. I've replaced the probes, and I think at this point I'm just kind of done with the VE thermostats. I've had too many bad experiences. I've checked my racks. I'll all of a sudden come in and all the snakes are sitting towards the front, away from the heat element. I'll check my rack, and the heating element's like 120, 130 degrees, and that's the only thermostat I've ever had that problem with. I'm sure others will say different. I don't want to take away from the quality of them. I think that they're fantastic. They have some fantastic features similar to the Spider Robotics, but I've never had a Spider Robotic one fail on me, and I've had multiple VE ones fail on me. I actually think every one of them failed on me. So whether that be powering a low wattage rack or a high powered rack, I just don't trust them anymore at this point, so I just don't use them. Another one that I used to use a long time ago, before many of these became as easy to get, was the Helix thermostats. Now, Helix makes a really nice thermostat, and they have all kinds of extra features, like some of these more expensive ones do, like night drop and stuff like that. But I think there's better ones out there now. I don't want to say that there's more reliable ones. I just find if you're going to be spending, Helix thermostats run anywhere from, I don't know, $120 to $200. In that $120 to $200, I'd rather get a Herpstat, but that's my personal opinion. If I'm going to be spending that kind of money on it, I just get the one that I really like, the Herpstat by Spider Robotics. I can't say enough good about them, but I can't cough up the money to do it. And again, I'm going to get to the one that I use now, which I'm really enjoying. So one other one that I'm going to drop, and I really hate these, are the Hydrofarm Jumpstart thermostats. So what appealed to me on these is they seem to be a typical on-off thermostat, but they were at a fantastic price point, about $25. If you go to a Reptile store, maybe they were $50, but if you get them online like Amazon, they were about $25. The Hydrofarm Jumpstarts, they're just terrible. In my opinion, they're absolutely horrible. They never keep temperature right. I think I bought like 10 of them at one point because I was told they were great, and I'm saying, wow, they're cheap, let me buy them, let me throw them on some racks. I'll do things like do some split level, so one rack will be covered by 2 thermostats, and they just are horrible. To the point where I'm checking my heat tape, wondering if the heat tape is bad, and it's not. It's the thermostat. The thermostat is something about the probe. I think they're good for plants, which is what they're made for, using like as like a little seed base. I think when you grow plants, you put some heat tape underneath it. I don't know plants, but I kill every plant that I try to grow. But I think that's what they're for, and maybe in that application they're good, but for reptiles, absolutely not. You're going to get what you pay for, and I wouldn't even say it's worth $25. I would, if somebody gave them to me, I would give them away. I wouldn't use them. I wouldn't even sell them. I just would tell them I'm not interested. I wouldn't take them. So with that in mind, like, those would just get out. The ones that I really like lately, and I haven't used them long enough to say that they're the best ones I found, but they're called Inkbird Thermostat. If you just Google Inkbird Thermostat, and I get the ones with Wi-Fi. They range anywhere from $35 to $50, so the price range is perfect. They're on-off thermostats, which is, I don't mind. I mean, as long as you have a low degree temperature difference, the snakes aren't going through this crazy jumping, dropping up and down. So with other ones, like let's say the Hydrofarm Jumpstart ones that I was telling you are crap, maybe that's the problem. Maybe their jump, which I can't program, is too high. Maybe it's a 5-degree difference. So if I set it for 90, it goes to 95 and then drops down to 85. But you can't program that, at least in the ones that I've had. In the Inkbird ones, especially the Wi-Fi, I can hook them up from my Wi-Fi, and I can change the temperatures right from my phone. I can check on the temperatures right from my phone. It gives me a high-low alarm. It records the temperature as I go. It does things that these other thermostats that are $200, $300, $400, $500 are not doing for me. And for me, that's a huge selling point, is the ease of use. You plug them in, there's a heating and cooling, you plug obviously into the heating element, and they're just really good, simple, basic thermostats with some really nice features that a lot of these more expensive ones don't have. So those, I saw them on Amazon. There was like Black Friday, they had the Wi-Fi ones for $35. I think I bought 10 of them. I have a bunch just because I like them, and if a thermostat goes out, that's what I'm going to replace it with. I've been using them for about a year now, and I've had zero problems. So for me, I don't know. They can also take a pretty high power output. I think they're rated for like 750 or 1,000 watts. So they run my racks perfectly. My temperatures stay exactly where I need them. And I just really can't say enough good about that thermostat at that price point. So overall, my two kind of top rated ones that I would recommend to you guys would be the Inkbird thermostat for a budget-friendly, simple, easy-to-use thermostat with some super cool features. And then the Spider Robotics Herpstat as like this is the Cadillac or the Rolls Royce of thermostats, in my opinion. Maybe there's a better one and I haven't been exposed to it, but it has all kinds of super cool features, but you're going to be spending some money to get them. Now, thermostat placement. I'm sorry, this is getting a little long, but at least for me, now this is going to vary based on your setup, but for me, when I take my thermostat probe, I put it directly on the heat tape. So in my racks here, you know, like this guy behind me, I have a heating element that runs behind the back of the rack. I put it right on that rack, right on that heating element. And the thought behind that is I can control the output to my cages. So if I don't care about my temperature inside. So if I want my temperature inside my rack at my snake's hotspot to be 90 degrees, I might need to put my thermostat probe at 95, 98, something like that. It's going to depend on my room temperature throughout the year, but that's where I put it. I pop it right on there. I use a piece of that aluminum heat tape or aluminum foil tape. It's for HVAC ducts. You can get it at the Home Depot. It's like $5 to $10 a roll. Don't use duct tape, because when duct tape heats up, it will melt and fall off. Aluminum heat tape, I'm not sure what kind of glue they use, but it doesn't melt when it gets hot. That's why you can't use duct tape or things like Scotch tape. Spend the $5, get the roll, and it lasts forever. So that's kind of the summary as a whole in this video. Is I really like those two thermostats, and put your probe directly on your heat tape. If you have a heat panel, I've never personally used them, so I can't tell you where to put it. If you have a light, you may want to use something like a rheostat. So I told, maybe this is one more that I'll put in there, but ZoomEd makes ones like rheostats. It's essentially a cord with a couple outlets on the end. You plug your lights into it, then you adjust the dial, and that will change the wattage of the bulb. Super simple, can't really go wrong, but you do have to get a temp gun. That is something that, with all these thermostats in mind, get yourself a temp gun. You can't use those little stickers, and many of you guys know this, so if you've been around this for a little bit, a lot of this is kind of geared for beginners or intermediate. I'm not an expert, but if you guys are, then these videos might be boring to you, but a temp gun is so important as part of reptile keeping. You need to just check your temperatures all the time. When a snake's doing something weird, when they're sitting in a corner, I go in, just check my temperatures. Every day or so, I'll go in and I'll spot check my racks, just because heating is so important for reptiles. If it gets too cold, you have respiratory infections. If it gets too hot, they start getting neurological crazy, and they start doing like IBD-like twists. So you really need to make sure your temperatures are on point. For thermostats, you get what you pay for, but those two are certainly great. And again, for $50, you can't go wrong on the Inkbird ones. I almost didn't tell you guys about it because I want to make sure that I have enough to buy myself, but I have quite a few in the back. So appreciate you guys watching. Sorry this was a long video. Let's zoom in again. Check this guy out. Pearl Island boa. Really cool. These guys are from, I think they're boa constrictor saboge. I don't know if they're been reclassified as boa saboge now, but or boa imperator saboge, but they're definitely BCS or BIS at this point. So I don't know my classifications. I just enjoy reptiles, enjoy the snakes. So hopefully you guys like this video. Appreciate you guys watching. Please like and share if you find it worthy, and subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate it. We grow the channel. We keep getting more videos. So thanks, guys.